Well, long term for any business, if you're not paying what the market is paying, people aren't going to stay there, right? You can have an awesome company, but if you're paying, say, $20,000 less to all of your employees than what they could get in another company, they might come to your company for some experience. They might, take on more roles and responsibilities, and then they'll jump ship when they get a new offer. So you have to be able to come to the table with all of the research backing it up. These are the skills. This is what's paying marketplace. Here's actually some examples of what I've seen elsewhere. Or, I've had recruiters reaching out to me, positions of this pay. I don't want to leave this company, but this is what I'm seeing. What would you do in my situation? So you have to come to them with hard facts instead of feelings. Pushing too hard with the negotiation. I think there's two parts to it, right? One is internally, do you feel regret because you knew that you pushed it too hard? And you feel like, oh, that's just a learning lesson and I will never do that again. It was just too hard. The other is, are you just feeling like you pushed too hard because other people are making you feel that way?
And that's next on Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. So, the big question is this. How are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough? Use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams. Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question. And this podcast will give you the answers. Hey listeners and viewers, we have created a tremendous community of bootstrappers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ambitious, resourceful, and want to get things done. We brainstorm, support, and help each other out. Come join us. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. That is bootstrapping.group. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, go ahead and hit the thumbs down button and give us your feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetranoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host, Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Kathlyn Hart. So Kathlyn is a financial empowerment coach and motivational speaker who supports ambitious women to dream big, live boldly, and earn more. Through her salary negotiations course, Be Brave, Get Paid, which has helped individuals increase their income by an average of $15,000. That's amazing. She supports women to own their worth and gain the skills to confidently ask for more. Well, that's a noble cause for sure. Kathlyn's teachings on money, mindset, career, business, and courage have been featured in publications like Business Insider, Forbes, Bustle, The Muse, LearnFest, Hello Giggles, and Pop Sugar. Awesome. She lives in San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome, Kathlyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Great. So just so we can get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and this mission that you're on? It's an amazing mission. I'm very passionate about it myself. So please share your story.
Yeah, definitely. My story goes all the way back when I graduated from college. I took the first job I was offered and took the first salary I was given. I think like many people, you just don't know that you can negotiate. I was never taught to ask for more. So when I had that paycheck in front of me, I was like, yes, let's do it. And pretty quickly, though, I found out I was being underpaid and that I had the ability to actually negotiate for more. So that little seed was planted then, but I didn't really do much about it because I was really focused on the nonprofit work that I was doing. Flash forward to me realizing, oh, I really can't get by when I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I was driving to an office that was actually located inside of a graveyard. And I had all these dreams to go travel the world. I realized like I can't do it with this paycheck. And I can't continue to live this life. There's so many other things that I want to make happen. So when I made that connection, I realized, one, I need to learn how to negotiate my salary. Two, I need to learn how to get in control of my money, so that I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. So I'm not just, spending credit card money and then, constantly in debt. And then three, I needed to really take ownership of my life. So that's what kind of started the whole thing. Actually switched careers, got into not programming exactly, but kind of software development, user experience. Eventually saved up enough money, quit my job, traveled. And when I was traveling is when I first started my very first business, helping businesses develop things like their website, social media strategy, et cetera. And from that place is when I started to coach people, because people would say, well, how did you quit my job? How did you quit your job? How did you switch careers? How did you start a business? So I kind of started all over the place, just teaching people what I knew and trying to help in whatever way I could. And slowly, one of the things that kept popping up, whether it was negotiating in your business or negotiating in your career, was just that idea. How do I negotiate? How do I ask for more money? So started teaching it. And as I started getting those results, like you said, 15,000, I've had people get as much as over 30,000 with a single conversation. It's just powerful because I know that impact that it can have. I knew the impact it had on my life. I could see the impact it was having on others. So it just became something that I thought, this is something of meaning, of something of good, that empowers individuals, whether it is in your business or your career. So that's where I'm at today.
Great. That's a beautiful story. So one thing you brought up, which is very interesting, is, obviously negotiating for a higher pay is very important, and you should always get your worth. But the next part is, how do you handle your money? And you pointed out, it's also the financial education. Once you get that extra money, what do you do with it? Whether you spend it or, you get into debt, because if you're earning more and you're constantly in debt, it doesn't really, work in your favor. So that aspect is also very important. So do you incorporate that into your teachings and into your coaching as well?
Yeah, I do. It's always something that I make sure when we're ending the topic to touch on, because you're going to get this new paycheck and you're going to be so excited and you think, oh, I get to take that trip to Bali. I get to go backpacking in Nepal, whatever's that thing that you've been wanting to do. But if your kind of net worth isn't increasing, you can only go so far with that. So sure, you can get new experiences, but you want to make sure long-term that you are saving more. So the one thing I always try to touch on with people is, how do you want to retire? One thing that I always used to say to myself is, I want to retire as a baller. Like, I want to be able to pay for my grandchildren's education if I wanted to, or contribute. I want to be able to serve on boards. I want to be able to travel. So all these things that I want to enjoy now, I definitely want to make sure that I'm, saving part of that to be able to make my life now be enjoyable. But I also long-term want to retire in a way that is going to support that lifestyle for many, many years to come. So I always touch on that you don't want to just blow all that money. Just pretend like you didn't earn that much. Like maybe you got half of that amount and you can blow that amount, but then the other half, sock it away either for your retirement, pay down your debts, or just contribute in something that you feel like is important that long-term will add benefits to your life as well.
That's great. And now, this notion of not getting your worth, is it applicable to women? I mean, obviously, there's a huge talk going on. There's a huge movement going on equal pay for women. Or is there other groups, other groups like maybe minority groups or, other professions that this is a major problem in?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an issue for everyone. And I actually work with men as well as women. In terms of marketing, it just makes it easier. I help women, it is a big problem. And so I can become a source for women, and they can feel comfortable. And I do a lot of women I work with, but it's a problem for everyone. I've worked with men who are making over $250,000 that also needed my help with how to negotiate, because no matter your income level, say you're making a lot, you still have these feelings of, oh, should I ask for more? That feels greedy. I should be able to get by with $250,000. Why do I need 300,000? Right? We have these mental blocks that we have. And then of course, if you grew up with you have a minority background, maybe you grew up where your parents were your first generation, they might say, you should just be grateful for what you have. I have many students I work with where they said, my parents told me just accept the job, be grateful that you have this opportunity. These things don't come by every day. You have to just take it. You don't want them to take it away. And so that kind of language and that kind of way of thinking is being put upon them and has probably been for a long time. So they also have to reshift the way that they think about money and negotiation to say, hey, if I negotiate in a way that's proper, that's not demanding, it's just knowing that it's just a conversation, I can do it in a way that will, not damage my relationship with my employer and potentially be getting me more money. So it applies to every single human being, no matter your race, your gender, and how much you're making. It applies to us all.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So, do you know what is the root cause of this? Like, why do employers sort of get into this game of paying just enough to keep the employees and not paying them the worth, whatever
Yeah.
they're worth?
Yeah, it's a great question. And a lot of people, when they work with me, they're like, I hate my employer, or, there's all these like negative feelings. And I really try to put everyone in the shoes of the business owner, right? You're a business owner. I'm a business owner as well. I have people that I employ. And while maybe I could pay somebody $100 an hour, that would really, really eat into my bottom line, right? And so I have a position. I may know that it goes for $20 to $30 reasonably, right? And then I'm going to say, well, I could pay them $30. Maybe I can go up that high if, they're really awesome. I can't afford to have anyone else. But I could also say, you know what? There's a lot of people that could do this position. I really don't have as much budget as I'd like to. I'm a really lean startup, so I'm going to start with 20. So the first offer that I make is at the bottom of the range. Does that make me a horrible person? No, it makes me a person who is, slowly and smartly and strategically trying to grow this business. I'm doing what's best for my bottom line, not because I'm a greedy individual, but because I want to make sure that I'm going to sustain this business long term. So when we think about ourselves in that way as a business owner and we reverse it, we can think, okay, at the end of the day, this company is just trying to save money. This company wants to make sure that long term it's going to be able to continue doing the work and hopefully the good work that it's doing, right? And so with that in mind, we know that they're always going to probably start with the lower number, unless, like I said, you're an individual who is just, highly sought after, then they'll probably give you a higher offer. So if we think we're probably going to start on the lower end for them, we have to think for us, we're going to start at the top range. And then in between that, we will find a happy medium. So it's not really a problem. It's just, we have to understand it's just business. At the end of the day, they're going to start on the low end. And us as the business of our own lives and our own careers, we're going to start at the top end.
Yeah, I see. And so you brought up this point about startups. So is this problem more prevalent in startups or is it prevalent in larger companies as well?
Yeah, I think larger companies as well. Something interesting happens when you are a larger company is that, say, if you're a Google, right, you can afford to have people be paying people potentially less than another company because, there's so many people that want to work at your company. So there's like a balance that happens, but it's I wouldn't say it's a problem, but it's just a situation that any business owner will face. What should we pay employees? And it's going to depend on like the demand of the market. Is this person that's applying, are they bringing skills that are highly valuable that we're not going to find from other candidates? And then on the same, side of the other side of the spectrum, it's, is this a position where there's a lot of people and we're going to be lucky to be able to hire anybody? So there's a balance on both ends of supply and demand. And that's always going to figure out of, what's that price point going to be, whether or not you're a small company or a big company. You just kind of have to look at what is the supply and demand of either our company and the type of company that we are. Are we a high in demand company or nobody wants to work here, so we have to make good offers? Or, for the employees, are there a lot of people out there or not that many people out there? All those factors go into kind of setting that price point or that initial offer that's going to be made.
Sure. So when we compare the price point of the salary ranges or contracting rates, should we have you seen the differential between the market rate and what the person is getting, or also between the colleagues within the same company? So some people at, for example, Google may be getting proportionally very high pay compared to what contribution they're making, or is it mostly generally around whatever the general market outside the company is paying?
Well, long term for any business, if you're not paying what the market is paying, people aren't going to stay there, right? You can have an awesome company, but if you're paying, say, $20,000 less to all of your employees than what they could get in another company, they might come to your company for some experience. They might, take on more roles and responsibilities, and then they'll jump ship when they get a new offer. So long term, it's always in the business's best interest to be paying fairly and to be paying market. It's also within the company's best interest to try to keep the employees that are doing the same job in the same bracket, because they don't want their employees also to leave just because they find out, hey, Tanya is actually making $10,000 more, but we do the exact same role. So it's always going to be in the business's best interest to be paid fairly. But again, if technically fair market range is say 80 to 100,000, right, and they're paying all their employees within that range, then it's going to be up to that individual to come to the table with why they think they should be on that higher range. Because, from the business point of view, they are paying you what market is. So it's up to that individual to kind of say, hey, I've noticed that my pay is potentially less. I'd love to discuss compensation. Of course, you'd bring it up in a slightly different way, but that's the general gist, that it would be up to that person to come up and ask for more. Because at the end of the day, the business isn't necessarily going to say, oh, hey, we noticed you're being paid $20,000 less than what Tanya's making. How about we have a conversation about it? Again, they're going to be keeping in the bottom line in mind.
Okay. And what was, let's go back to your experience. What was your aha moment? How did you realize that you were getting underpaid? And maybe even, share a little bit of your conversation you had with your boss.
Yeah, the first conversation was horrible. I think, like many of us, our first negotiation, it was just like, what did I say? Why did I say that? I knew I should have been more silent, but I was talking for 5 minutes. So that conversation was horrible. But how I did find out I was being underpaid was just by researching. So any person, no matter what gender you are, what role you are, where you are financially, you should always know what your worth is in the marketplace. And it's always in your best interest to be doing kind of like an audit at least every year to learn what are other people being compensated at in similar roles at different companies. When you know that from your skills, from your experience, et cetera, that you should be paid, let's say $60,000, you're going to have no fear you're going to have less fear. It's always going to be fearful, but you're going to have less hesitation to come to the table to have that conversation. When you feel, and this is what many people do, they just feel underpaid, but they don't know if they're actually underpaid. It's really difficult to have that conversation, because when you go to your manager, you go to your boss and you say, hey, you know what? I'd like to have a conversation about compensation. I'm really feeling underpaid. Their first question to you is going to be, well, why? And how much? And how much do you think that you should be paid? If you have zero answers to that, you're not going to go anywhere. So you have to be able to come to the table with all of the research backing it up. These are the skills. This is what's paying marketplace. Here's actually some examples of what I've seen elsewhere. Or, I've had recruiters reaching out to me, positions of this pay. I don't want to leave this company, but this is what I'm seeing. What would you do in my situation? So you have to come to them with hard facts instead of feelings. So that was probably one of my biggest mistakes, is in my first negotiation, I had some of the facts, but they weren't concrete enough. So I was basing my entire negotiation on feelings, and that went nowhere. They were like, well, we're paying you what we feel is equal. So unless you can present us with some hard facts, we can't really do anything about it. So I just felt stupid by the end of the day. And it was a great lesson. So anyone listening, if you haven't yet negotiated, take my mistake as your guidance. Don't just come there with feelings, really have facts prepared. And that will take you a lot further when it comes to your negotiation.
That's great. And so did you end up negotiating once again with the same person, or did you leave the company, or what happened?
Yeah, eventually I ended up having to leave, because even with the facts, they were only able to give me, I think it was like $1,000 increase. And for where I was at with my life and with what my career ambitions were, it just wasn't going to be a matchup. So that's also the case, is I think oftentimes we feel like, it sucks to search for a new job, and it sucks to have to brush up your resume and have to send cover letters and have to make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. All of those things aren't fun. But if long-term, you know that your company is not going to be able to support what your aspirations are for your life in terms of finances, or maybe your manager isn't willing to have this conversation and you've gone up the ranks, you have allies that are supporting you, but nothing's happening, sometimes you do just have to leave. And that's the reality. So in this situation, I did leave. In my next job, I negotiated almost double of what I was having in the previous position. So, it was the right next move for me.
That's great. So obviously, this is a great skill to have for professionals who are trying to, get their worth in the marketplace. But what advice do you have for startup founders, entrepreneurs, when they are trying to build their team? Like, that's another side of the equation. Like, it will be good if they do the research and offer the right salaries in the first place. I think it will be more amicable between the two parties. Isn't that right?
Yeah, definitely. And when you're a startup, you have to think, money is one thing, but what are all the other things, right? And so you have to be thinking in terms of equity within the company. You want to be thinking about like the long-term growth potential that individual might have. So if you're the first hire, there's so much room for you to grow and roles and responsibilities that they can take on. So you're going to be wanting to think, well, if I can't give them financially what they want, what else am I going to be able to give to them? Do they want equity within the company? Is it about management? Is it about experience? Do they want to be able to sit in on key meetings? What is that individual looking for outside of just money? When it does come to money, though, it is really important for you to think again about your bottom line. What is going to be, I guess, the least amount that you think you can pay individuals that will get a yes from somebody that seems like, not a slap in the face in terms of compensation, but is reasonable enough that won't eat too much into your bottom line. For any negotiator, whether you are on the side of the employee or the employer, you want to have 3 numbers in mind. And it's kind of like, what's your starting number? What's the number you kind of want to close it on, and what's your walkaway number, right? So as the employee, you want to your starting number is going to be super high, right? And the number that you potentially want to close on is that middle one. And then the number that you are going to walk away when they're not able to meet it is that number that's just like, it's just not going to work out. There's no way I would accept this offer. Same for the employer, right? You want to have your starting number, which is actually going to be lower. You're going to have the number that you're hoping to potentially close on. And then you're going to have that walk away number. The walk away number is going to be, that's way out of budget for our company. So it's always important for you to have those numbers in mind and really set, so that you don't walk into the conversation and just accidentally say a number that's either, say for the employer, way too high. If you start at that middle number instead of the lower number, you might be shooting yourself in the foot, because then your negotiation now happens in between the 2 higher numbers rather than between the bottom number and then the very top. Same for the employee. If you start with a number, you negotiate against yourself, say you want 80,000, but 75,000 is okay. If you start the conversation at 75,000, there's no way you're getting 80,000 now. So you just want to know what are your numbers at and really set that starting number with the intention of you'll probably come down from it if you're the employee, and for the employer, knowing that you'll probably have to come up from it.
That's great. And one important point you brought up was, look around and think about what else people want, because, it's not always about money. As you put it, their freedom, sometimes freedom to work from anywhere. Sometimes it's, contribution to their future development, professional development, personal development. Those type of things are also very, very valuable to a lot of people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so now let's talk about your own journey. Like you said that you wanted to travel, and that's what sort of transpired this whole thing. So were you able to accomplish that goal in a way that you wanted, or because you mentioned you had to ultimately turn towards entrepreneurship? So how did that unfold?
Yeah. I made that trip happen. First stop was Bali in Indonesia. And then after that, I headed to Thailand, and then I headed to India, then Nepal, Hong Kong, and then back home. I actually thought I would travel longer, but I did a lot of meditating throughout it. And every time after after my final meditation, I did one of a 10-day silent retreat. And after that in Nepal, I was like, I think I'm ready to go home now. Like I've traveled enough. It's not all the same, but I was ready to have roots again. So I definitely made that happen. And in India is when I started my first business. I helped my first business with my partner with creating their website, doing all their marketing and video and things like that. Definitely negotiated that, which was an interesting process, and was still work with them till this day. So continue to kind of evolve my work. But really, it's about how do you position yourself, whether it's an employee or as a business owner. What I'm doing at the end of the day is trying to help people or companies really identify who are they, what makes them special, what are the pain points that they're solving, what are the solutions that they provide, and how can they position and package themselves in a way that's going to earn the most money.
Cool. And
Yeah,
while you were traveling, were you working on your job, or you had left that job already?
I had left.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see this trend quite a bit. Like, a lot of people have, when they start to, understand the world and understand themselves, and they know exactly what they want out of life, generally they reach a conclusion that employment is not going to give them exactly what they want, and they turn towards entrepreneurship. Have you seen that trend as well?
I think so. I mean, I think, there's nothing wrong with employment. And I know many people too who, go the entrepreneur path and then they go back to working just because they want to go back to the stability of it all and kind of want the structure. But yeah, I think in the process of, self-actualization and trying to find yourself and reaching your highest potential, a big part of that is exploring. And in order to do that, you need the freedom. Business is in itself one of the best things that you can do for personal development and discovery, because you have to find out what is it that really drives you. What are the things that bring you to life? What are the innate skills that you possess and the innate talents that you can really shine with? Where are the boundaries in terms of like what you feel comfortable with doing? How can you start to push those boundaries? Even for pitching yourself, for being on podcasts. The very first podcast I was on, I was just shaking. You could hear it in my voice. I was quivering the whole time. So as a business owner, pitching yourself, being on podcast, talking to people about what your business is, that is limits that you never have to face as just an employee. So it's really such a process to discovering who you are, what you're meant to be doing, and finding that greater calling that I think draws so many people to entrepreneurship.
Great. And
Yeah.
just being the devil's advocate, have you come across somebody who had buyer's remorse? Like, they may have negotiated the deal, but they, got scorned upon, or, they were not, really liked as much in their company, or they went the entrepreneurship route and they regretted it, because even entrepreneurship is not easy, as you put it. There are so many things you have to learn. There are so many obstacles you will encounter. So do you have any such story?
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to think of a specific story, but I guess just generally, I think when we think about regret in that sort of way, so say for pushing too hard with the negotiation, I think there's two parts to it, right? One is internally, do you feel regret because you knew that you pushed it too hard? And you feel like, oh, that's just a learning lesson and I will never do that again. It was just too hard. The other is, are you just feeling like you pushed too hard because other people are making you feel that way? Right? Which in turn isn't a positive cycle, because then it keeps people. So say you are a minority, you could be a male minority, and you felt like, oh, you pushed it, and all these people around you are saying, oh, you asked for too much, you asked for too much. Well, is that actually keeping you as an individual, the people that are within your community or in your family network, at a lower income bracket because you all believe that you push too much, right? So it could be a negative self-fulfilling prophecy if you just listen to that feeling just because other people said so. It's one thing to feel like you individually know you pushed that way too hard, you've really messed up some relationships. And when you think, oh, maybe I just pushed too hard because other people think so. So one story that does come to mind with this is I worked with a woman that's in the church, and she negotiated, and she got so much backlash against it because culturally they felt like that was inappropriate for her as a woman to be pushing, especially within the church, because it's a very conservative environment. Was she pushing too much? No, she wasn't. She was just doing it in the standard way, but it was something that pushed the envelope for them. But what happened as a result is that she actually created a positive impact, a positive kind of ripple effect for her employees or fellow coworkers, because then they also then felt more comfortable to be able to negotiate. So I guess what I'm saying with this kind of illustration is that you might feel some pings of regret But just before you go down the kind of spiral of feeling like, oh, that was too much, ask yourself, is it feel too much because you know it's too much? Or ask yourself, do you regret it? And was it too much because of the people around you and you're helping to push boundaries, which are actually a positive impact on everyone. Yeah. And then I think for entrepreneurship, I think so many people regret it, but it's just, you go in cycles, right? So you might do a startup. You think, oh my God, that was a mess. I was so terrible at it. I was a terrible manager. I had no idea what I was actually creating. I definitely should have tested this before I took it to market because I was just going off of, creating it in my bedroom at home and then without ever sharing it with anyone. You think, I'm never going to do that again. I go back to work. And then the bug catches you again. You think, oh, okay, no, I don't regret it. It was just a learning lesson. I grew from it. Now I know how to do it better. And then you go it again and maybe you mess up and maybe you have some regrets, but then you go through another cycle and then the bug catches you again. So I think regret can be fleeting in those ways. And most of the time, whether it's in your career or as a business, it's just learning opportunities.
Awesome. So what I'm taking from this is earning money and getting your own worth is very important, but also it's important to balance other aspects of your life and, make sure you're not, people actually appreciate you as you go to work or you go into entrepreneurship, learn from your experiences. So it needs to be a holistic approach rather than just going after, more money, right?
Yeah. More money will never be the answer. It's helpful. Money is a tool to say yes to yourself, to your dreams, to the family that you either have or want to have and the communities that you want to serve. But if you're just chasing money, it's not going to be great. So you have to always think about it in the bigger picture. And keeping in mind, the relationships, we did touch on it. At the end of the day, you want to know your worth. You want to advocate for yourself, but you always need to be careful of how you pitch yourself because you don't want to come across as being somebody that's greedy. There's different things that you can do mentally to kind of help you through that. But at the end of the day, there are people that you are working with. And so you always want to do that negotiation in the most pleasant and positive way possible.
Right. And let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. So, we always talk about how tough was it and did you make any mistakes and what can we learn from those?
Yeah. Oh, so many mistakes. So my podcast, I switched the name, but it was called The Big Leap Show before. And the reason I had to switch the name is because before I would get people like writing to me, et cetera. And they would say, I took the big leap. I started a business. And then they thought that would be it. You just take the leap once and then you're done. You're constantly taking leaps when it comes to entrepreneurship. There's so many failures that come along the way. There's so many times where you're like, oh my God, I have no money coming in the door. So it's such a big journey and each person is so different and it depends too on what you're selling, of course. For me personally, the biggest thing that I've had to do was continue to diversify my earnings, right? So I have my course, Be Brave, Get Paid. That's one way I make money. I also make money through one-on-one coaching, working with people in a format like this where we talk and I help them dig and help them practice. I do speaking and that's a way to earn money. And then outside of the salary negotiation and coaching aspect, I continue to do business strategy for people, helping them identify, like I said, it's positioning. Who are you? What's the problem that you're solving? How can we present you online? How can we do email marketing in a way that's going to connect with your people? How can we do the follow-up? How can we do phone consultations? How can we get the invoicing? How do we follow up with invoicing? All of that stuff to really make sure that one, you're positioned in the way that's going to sell your worth, but then two, actually make sure that you get paid. And then what else do I do? Once in a while, if I'm really strapped for cash, because, we're all lean startups, I'll make a website for somebody. So that's another way to bring, thousands of dollars through the door. And I love still doing software development because that's, like I said, when I switched from nonprofit, I got into user experience and kind of software development. So I love being able to create a website for somebody when I really need the cash, but keeping in mind that like, it doesn't need to be one thing that will help earn you that thing and not putting your pressure, especially in the beginning, to make it be your full-time income. You are getting paychecks every 2 weeks if you're in a traditional job that will pay your bills. In the beginning, when you start this entrepreneurial journey, you probably won't have a paycheck coming for the first few months. So you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. If you can, and if you have other skills, I think it's wonderful to have other cash projects coming in the door to help you to be able to create that long-term success for you.
Great, very well said. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story and all your wisdom. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us a little bit about how people can reach out and if they need any help, and tell us a little bit about your podcast? I think you mentioned the name, but if you can repeat that, that would be good.
Yeah, totally. If you go to kathlynhart.com, it's KATHLYNHART.com. That's the main hub. So there, if you want, you can set up a free call with me. I love doing business strategy calls with the 15 minutes. And then also if you're looking to learn how you can negotiate for more, either in your career or your business, you can reach me there as well. On my website, you also have links to my podcast. It's now called The Kathlyn Hart Show. And you can listen to amazing interviews like with cool people such as yourselves and talking about their own personal journey. And you could just say hello as well. I love hearing from you, especially if you listen to this podcast, you had a nugget of wisdom, you can reach out to me there. And I'm on social media and all those things. You can find me at Kathlyn Hart, but kathlynhart.com is the main hub.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much once again. And we'd love to have you on another show in a few weeks.
Yeah, amazing. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk with you and to share with your audience. And I can't wait for people to get their ears on this one.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
And that's all for now. Until next time. And if you're an existing or an aspiring tech entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to bootstraptechstartup.com and sign up for free. I want to make sure that more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to bootstraptechstartup.com and I look forward to helping you with your tech projects. If you want more engaging videos and insightful interviews with industry's thought leaders, then check out other videos we have picked for you. The link is right there. And if you want to be notified about our new content, please do consider subscribing to our channel.